Hey, welcome to another episode of GeekOutdoors.com. This week, we're going to be talking about how your next iPhone could be slower than Android phones, and also how the Windows PowerShell is actually coming to Linux. So, once again, some interesting geeky stuff. So, let's go ahead and start with the news that your next iPhone could be slower than your Android phone. And specifically, what we're talking about here is internet speeds. Now, if you didn't already know, Apple actually sued Qualcomm back in 2017 over patents. And the thing is, Qualcomm makes chips for the majority of smartphones. And one of the most important parts that they own patents over is the whole networking capability. And the thing is, even if you don't use Qualcomm chips in your phone, you still have to pay Qualcomm for licensing fees for those patents. And so that was something that Apple felt that was unfair, and they went ahead and sued Qualcomm. And this is kind of funny since Apple did sue Samsung and many other manufacturers over patents that they own, but mainly Samsung, so it is funny. So anyway, with this whole issue, what started happening was back in 2016, some of the iPhones that were released did not use Qualcomm's chips. They actually started using Intel chips for their modems. And as of right now, the majority of all your new iPhones, if they are on AT&T or T-Mobile, they're more than likely going to be using a Intel-based modem. And so the thing with Qualcomm's chips is they're actually faster than Intel chips, because Intel is behind when it comes to network capability and data transfer speeds on their mobile chipsets. And so Qualcomm, by the end of 2018, they should be releasing Android phones that can get up to 5G speeds. And so that's going to be a huge leg up over what Apple can offer with their Intel chips. And Qualcomm has also stated that Apple is purposely slowing down their other iPhones that use the Qualcomm chipset on Verizon and Sprint to make it seem like the speed is the same regardless of which chips that they're using. And in tests that they've shown, when you use a Qualcomm chip for networking versus Intel, they've noticed that there's over 50% and sometimes 60% speed differences versus a Android phone which is using a Qualcomm chip at its full capacity. And so that is pretty significant, and especially as more and more people are getting on the internet all around the world. Now, this is a battle that I think at this point Qualcomm does have the edge because they own so many patents and they're on so many phones. But the thing is, Apple has a lot of money and they have a lot of power, and they've even obviously tried to push their power around or exert their power, however you want to say it, through Samsung, because Samsung makes a lot of the chips for Apple's iPhones as well. And if you have been keeping up with the news, Apple has also used other chip providers like TSMC, and even for their screens, they're using LG as a manufacturer versus Samsung. So what Apple is doing is something that I think any of these businesses would do. They're protecting their place in the market, protecting their ability to make changes whenever they feel like, and to keep the competitors out. Okay, in this case, not too reliant on any one manufacturer, where Apple at any point in time they could actually go to another manufacturer or have multiple manufacturers. So this is a case where I think Apple is right now, they're currently not in the strongest spots when it comes to this. And so by the time that they catch up, Qualcomm's probably going to be releasing 6G modems by that point, or already be testing it. And so this will be interesting, and for people who are already using iPhones, they probably won't notice the difference anyway. And if you are living in a country that's already getting really fast internet speeds, then I don't think it matters for the majority of people. Okay, I think it'll only matter whenever you get to the point where you're either going to be streaming a lot of 4K footage, like 4K videos, or if you could be playing video games on your phone, which most people don't anyway, so latency is not really a problem. So let's see what happens with this whole power issue, and specifically talking about the networking issue versus Qualcomm versus Apple and versus Intel as well. So getting to the second bit of news, Windows continues to make its move into Linux. Now, the actual CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, he actually stated that Microsoft loves Linux, and that was back in 2014, which is a stark contrast from Steve Ballmer, who called Linux a cancer. And I've already talked about this many times before, where Nadella is a different type of CEO. He is very savvy, and he does see the benefits of Linux, specifically from a business point of view. And so Microsoft has been making a lot of moves in the whole Linux area, you know, starting with joining the Linux Foundation, adding the WSL Windows subset layer with Linux, where they actually have different distros, or actually not distros, but they would actually allow Bash, Ubuntu Bash, to run in Windows. And also having their own distro for their micro devices, and also allowing their Azure cloud services to run Linux as well. And so Microsoft is definitely not stopping in this area. And I have stated this many times before, that Microsoft might be the largest provider of Linux-based services in the future, which sounds absolutely crazy. And so this move by them allowing or giving the Microsoft PowerShell for Linux, but also for Mac OS as well, it's a further move of their ecosystem into the whole Linux world, you know. And a lot of people who are purists, you know, who really love Linux, I love Linux, you know, they are probably not going to be happy with this, just as they weren't happy with everything else that Microsoft has done, and especially them buying GitHub just recently. So this is probably not a move that people who are heavily into FOSS, open source Linux, they're probably really pissed off. let's just put it that way. But the thing is, there's really not much you can do. You know, Microsoft is making moves in this area, and to be honest, I mean, even though I do not like the whole Windows experience, and I definitely don't agree with everything that Microsoft does, it also helps the Linux and open source community as well, because it does bring in a lot of money. And you know, I always seem to think, like, you know, technology, if it works well, if it allows people to actually use their computers or use their systems better, you know, regardless if it's Windows or Linux, you know, I'm gonna use it, you know. Just the only thing is, you know, as with Microsoft, you know, you always have to be cautious, okay? And that's the thing, you know, there's only so much that you can do, but Microsoft's gonna be Microsoft. And so there's kind of like that in one case where I do see the benefits of it, but I also remember Microsoft's various business practices as well. And so yeah, so it's always going to be the love-hate relationship, you know, so with Microsoft, you know. And I think for a lot of people who use Linux, it's probably more of a hate relationship than it is a love relationship. And so that is it for this particular episode. If you had any thoughts on anything that I talked about today, whether Apple iPhones running slower using Intel chipsets on their networking speeds, or Microsoft making yet another move into the whole Linux world with their Windows PowerShell command line scripting language, be sure to leave that in the comments area below. And as always, if you did get value out of these videos, be sure to subscribe. And if you wanted to support my channel further, you could do that by sharing, leaving a like, and subscribing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on another episode. Hey geeks, if you are a creative geek like me and you wanted to learn how to create content on YouTube and other places on the internet, then check out my Go Content Creators group, where you'll get access to 30 videos plus additional content for all the creative geeks out there. And the best part of it is, all of this is free. Simply head over to the link below, check out my page, and sign up for my Go Content Creators group. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for checking out this episode. And as always, If you like these videos, be sure to click on the subscribe button. And for full written content, audio content, and additional geek stuff, head over to geekoutdoors.com, and I'll see you outdoors on the very next episode.